Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. So, today I just kind of want to go over some of the changes as well as see if we can do a bunch of the pregame reviews. I want to do more pregame reviews in the future, but instead I'll go through all of them here quickly today. So, one of the changes, as you can probably see, is that I changed some of the color scheme, made it less offensive, a little bit more interesting and easier on the eyes. Um, I want to make it so that I can bring up maybe this head-to-head panel instead of searching through this one every single time that I do it. But for now, that's not in place. The next big thing that I've made work again, I've made this team compare work again. Before it wasn't really working with a team matchup, but I wanted them to come up side by side. So now that the team panel's working a little better, I had to get the data working underneath a little bit too as well, since that changed underneath. But now I have some better defensive stats, so we'll be able to see that here. So starting out here with the first game with Cleveland at Baltimore, now brings up these team panels. As you can see, I tried to add some rankings of my own. There's some simple calculations. So, of course, the passing number should equal the receiving number on each team. So that would put them in the same ranking. But I'll make that a little bit more interesting. It was just kind of a start to test to see if I can compare ranking numbers real easily and quickly. Um, so, of course, we had Baltimore with a lot of rushing right off the bat last week. And that gets more reflected down here. I think I should make this a little bigger. Um, so I'll work on doing that soon. A little easier to read. But it does have defensive data down here as well. So maybe I should split that up a little bit more. So I don't quite have the defense of like how much they allowed um, and their ranking there. That'd be cool. Maybe I can get that here pretty soon. So some of the other interesting stuff is we can see how many tackles there were between both solo and assisted tackles. Um, Really interesting. 31 solo tackles versus 51. I guess that was a longer game or a bigger game. So this is what I have for about the first matchup of tomorrow. So now for Jacksonville at Cincinnati. Really interesting that Jacksonville had quite a few rushing yards. Be interesting to see that breakdown eventually. Hopefully, I have that. That'd be more interesting. So yeah, hopefully someday, hopefully soon, I can get a breakdown of that to see if there was shared between a lot more of a committee or who really got all that rushing because I didn't pay attention to that as well. Anyway, interesting how bad the Cincinnati did. Pretty bad across the board. So not looking so good if you maybe have somebody on their team. All right, for the Giants at the Cowboys. Here your rank looks pretty good for the Cowboys. Kind of middle to upper, but that would mean they're a little bit stronger across the board. One of these numbers I don't really know too much about, but some of these EPAs, both your receiving and rushing, are much worse on the Giants potentially, just across the board. All right, and the next one to look at is Cincinnati at Detroit. Detroit had a rough game with their passing rank, not looking as bad, but I think that was due to some late game stuff. Their rushing looked very bad. It did look like the Cincinnati's defense managed to get some more 5 QB hits, 2 interceptions. So this might be another tough one for the Lions. And now looking at New England at Miami. Both teams had a pretty rough game against their previous opponents. Of course, Miami getting blown out by the Colts, and New England having a close game with the Raiders. So who do you think wins in this one? The Pats with 30 and 46, 287 passing yards. While Miami could only pull out 146 passing yards. Potentially playing a much better defense, though. Keep that in mind. They had a bit of a better rushing game in Miami, but not by much. And here we have the 49ers at New Orleans. You would think that this looks pretty good for San Francisco, but I believe that Purdy's out and you have Kittle out. So you lost a big connection there. Maybe a lot more rushing from McCaffrey could potentially be in the works, but hard to say. Um, Wish we could see how much New Orleans gave up here, but I'll have that for next time. So one of the things to dig into is looking at maybe how good San Francisco's defense is, if they can shut down some of this passing, the rushing, um, the way that the Cardinals did. If we look at the Cardinals here in place, because they kind of rushed all over them. So it might be a good day for McCaffrey if the other two are hurt. But if McCaffrey doesn't have a supporting team around him, like a good running or a good quarterback, but it does seem like San Francisco should be able to run on them. Now, Buffalo in New York. This would seem like it's a pretty easy win for Buffalo. They're kind of right down the road. Number one passing. Not as much rushing, but they can work with that. Although they have to defend against a pretty good rushing out uh, performance from the Jets last week. So look for that on the ground from the Jets and see if Buffalo can protect against that. And if so, then they have it. And the Jets would need to shut down this passing game. They did have 7 QB hits against the Steelers. So if they can get, Allen banged up a little bit, maybe they have a chance. Moving on to Seattle playing the Steelers. We have a Seattle team that doesn't look overly great, playing away at the Steelers. They just came off a close win with the Jets. It would kind of indicate that the Steelers probably have the advantage in this game. This rushing game, though, is really bad from the Steelers. 53 rushing yards, I would not want to be part of that. But a better passing game. Seattle's kind of the opposite, except for they don't even have phenomenal rushing. And the one I still haven't fixed is with the Rams, but the Rams are at Tennessee. Unfortunately, no information here. So you're going to have to figure this one out. But I'll have this fixed. I'll have this fixed for the next week whenever we look at LA next. Next, we have Carolina at Arizona. Arizona came out with that pretty impressive running game to start. I'm not sure how they did in Carolina defensively last week, but maybe continue to see that running game go. Maybe Kyler Murray gets more involved as well. There was an interception last week. 42 tackles. So defense might not have been too bad. They did throw a couple interceptions. So it could be a sloppy game. Could be a low-scoring, sloppy game. That's all I got on that one for now. And here we have the Denver Broncos playing Indianapolis in Indianapolis. Denver came out with a strong rushing game, but kind of struggled in the passing receiving core area. I saw the beginning of that game, and Bo did have a great start, it looked like, but enough to get the team really working. And they go against what looks like a pretty tough Indianapolis team, but they did play Miami, which could be a pretty bad team. We'll see how it all kind of falls out throughout the season. But yeah, so the Broncos defense definitely has to step up here, and this will be an interesting game. I don't actually know. This will kind of tell us more, I think, across the league, who's kind of good and who's not. All right, now you have Philly at Kansas City for the rematch of the Super Bowl. Philly still looked like they had a pretty decent handle on things with a good rushing rank. Not as much passing, but I think that just fills in once someone tries to stop the rushing game at Philly. Over here on Kansas City side, they didn't look so great against the Chargers, which maybe are just a great team too. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. See if Kansas City is able to keep up this year. They did not look as much of a well-rounded team as they did before. And finally, we have Atlanta at Minnesota. Once again, Minnesota not looking so great, especially in the air. A little better on the ground. And against a team that we're not so sure how good they should be in the end. I kind of feel like the same with Atlanta. Playing Tampa Bay, I thought Tampa Bay may be a little better, but maybe Atlanta's a better team in the end too. I originally predicted for this year. Their rushing game was not very good. Air game was pretty good though. So it'll kind of come down to the opposite of theirs. Who can rush better, who can pass better, how the defenses stack up, and that's unfortunately still the information I don't have. So with that, I'm sorry everybody that I don't have more information. I can't wait to get more of that defense information in there, and I'll continue to work on that. Hopefully, you'll see that in a video very soon. Other than that, I want to say thank you all for watching. Give a like if you enjoyed this content, and subscribe if you want to see more. Leave a comment on how things can get better, and I will see you all next time.